Hello again, Year 5, and welcome to the fourth lesson out of a series of 10 history lessons based on the Windrush and the theme of community. Let's get going. Let's make sure that we have everything we need to begin today's lesson. Are you ready? You'll need something to write with, a pen, a pencil, and something to write on. Maybe you've got a book that you can use, just some plain paper. Pause the video if you need to go and collect those items before we continue with the rest of today's lesson. So here's our starter for today. Invaders and settlers, who's who? So these are all groups of people who came and made Britain their home. Match up the picture with the tribe or group of people that invaded Britain. There's extra points if you can put them in order from who invaded Britain first to last. Stop the video now if you'd like time to think over your answers or discuss it with somebody at home. Welcome back. Let's have a look if we got it right. So we've got the Anglo-Saxons, the Romans, and the Vikings. Which image best represents those tribes? Let's see. Over here we've got the Vikings. Interesting choice of helmet there. And interesting fact, quite often when we picture our Vikings, they have those helmets with the horns on either side. Not actually something they used to wear. It was something that was invented much more recently, actually. Let's see who's next. Now, the Anglo-Saxons. You can see not a lot of armour there. And so, last but no means least, it must mean we've got the Vikings. You can tell by maybe their footwear and those sandals, but also the shape of their shield as well. Can you put them in order? Who invaded first? Now that's right. The Romans came first, followed by the Anglo-Saxons. And whilst the Anglo-Saxons were making Britain their home, the Vikings soon caught wind and came to join. So there we have it. The Romans, the Anglo-Saxons, and then the Vikings. Let's get started with today's lesson. So last time we were introduced to a character, Sam King, who was living in the Caribbean, that came over to England during the Second World War and fought in the RAF for the British. You can also see in the pictures there that Britain was hit by a lot of devastation and needed at the end of the war to be rebuilt. And we looked at how those members of the colonies who had fought for Britain during the Second World War were then invited back to Britain to come and help us once more begin to build our country. And there was that opportunity, and it came on the Empire Windrush, the ship that would bring over 1,000 people over to the UK. Today we're going to focus on some of the experiences from people who were either on the Windrush or became part of that generation. A generation of people from the Caribbean who came over to Britain, which ranges from 1948, I think, up to the late 60s, possibly up to 1972, I think. And we'll be able to, during this session, begin to make links to the book that we're looking at in Year 5, in the Year 5 home learning unit as well, based on The Arrival. And some of the experiences that the main character goes through in that book when they arrive in a new country. Here for you, I've got a poem written by um, John Agar, whose family had come from Guyana in 1977 over to Britain and made a life for themselves here. And this poem kind of reflects that transition from changing locality, moving from your hometown, from your home country to somewhere completely different. And I'm going to read it through to you now. Behind you, Windrush child, palm trees wave goodbye. Above you, Windrush child, seabirds asking why. Around you, Windrush child, blue water rolling by. Beside you, Windrush child, your Windrush mum and dad. Think of storytime yard and mango mornings and new beginnings, doors closing and opening. Will things turn out right? At least the ship will arrive in midsummer light. And you, Windrush child, think of grandmother telling you don't forget to write. And with one last hug, walk good, walk good. And the sea's wheel try carries on spinning. And from that place, England, you tell her in a letter of your Windrush adventure, stepping in a big ship, not knowing how long the journey, or that you're stepping into history, bringing your Caribbean eye to another horizon. Grandmother's words, your shining beacon, learning how to fly the kite of your dreams in an English sky. Windrush child, walking good, in a mind opening meeting of snow and sun. And as we listen to that poem, we get reminded of this kind of child being taken from a very different world to the one that we experience here in Britain. Palm trees waving goodbye, blue water rolling by. We've got there those mango mornings. And then the ship taking them away from people like their grandmothers and their elders with one last hug, which always seems quite sad, and that we're keeping in communication with them via a letter. So you tell her in a letter of your Windrush adventure. And also, the author, John Agar, here is really highlighting that moment of stepping into history as well, knowing that there's this change onto another horizon and seeing that we might need to learn how to be, how to fly, how to reach for our dreams in a new world under an English sky there. And interesting that we've got this hint that maybe the climate and the weather might be different than what they're used to. This introduction of snow and sun. Take a moment now to jot down some of those experiences that John Agar is saying that the Windrush child may have had as they journeyed from the Caribbean over to the UK. I'd like you to think also of two questions that you might ask a Windrush child about their journey to a new land. We've got another experience here from somebody who, especially if you've got parents around, will probably recognize the lady that is in the picture there at the top. Her name is Floella Benjamin, and she was a children's TV presenter and somebody that I recognize from my childhood. And she was somebody else who had come over to England in this Windrush era. And she's written a book about it as well, which I would recommend actually for families to be kind of reading together. This is an extract that kind of tells us about her experience. Her mother has already been in England for some time and has sent for her to come to England and join her. I'm gonna read through this extract, but I want you to think about how Floella is feeling as she crosses the ocean and boards the ship. Finally, the day of our journey across the ocean came. The excitement at the port gave me a tingle inside. I felt butterflies in my tummy. I could see the big ship far out in the water. I couldn't come right up to the side of the wharf because the water wasn't deep enough. So everyone had to be transported to the ship in small motorboats. There was so much noise, it was deafening. Everyone was pushing and shoving. People were shouting, making sure their trunks and suitcases were safe as the boats ferried backwards and forwards. I felt bewildered and lost amongst the other passengers and those who had come to bid them farewell. Many were hugging and crying as they said goodbye. Prayers were being said for a safe passage. Suddenly, I started to cry too. I felt scared, but of what I wasn't sure. Perhaps it was because I now realized what was about to happen. I was leaving my homeland, the land where I had experienced great happiness with my family. Maybe it was because I was frightened of going into the small boat as it bobbed on the dark, oily water which crazily reflected the harsh harbour lights like a liquid mirror and separated us from the waiting ship that seemed to be calling me to her. Maybe I was just scared of facing the unknown. Well, I still don't know. Feel free to pause the video if you'd like to read that back to yourself in your own time. Remember to think about what are those feelings that Floella has at that moment. Here I've picked out some of the clues that are within the words that she uses that might give us a bit of an idea. She's quite explicit at the beginning, the excitement, those butterflies in her tummy. Butterflies usually gives us an idea of nerves or that mixture of being nervous and excited at the same time. She also mentions that there's so much noise it was deafening. Think about a time when you've been somewhere where it's been really noisy. How has that made you feel? For me, sometimes it worries me a little bit. I can't quite make out what's going on around me properly. And I worry that I might miss someone calling my name or needing to get my attention. Get this great word here in the middle. I felt bewildered. What does that mean? Kind of means overwhelmed, lost, confused. And I guess when you're surrounded by lots of people all trying to do the same thing, I'd feel a bit lost too. I've picked out here that she notices that prayers were being said for a safe passage. You think about another ship that went for a long journey across the ocean, maybe didn't quite make it. That had come a few years before this, so maybe people had that in their minds. She felt scared. It's interesting here that she doesn't quite know why, and that's repeated at the end. Scared of facing the unknown. She still doesn't know. Just reminding herself that she was leaving her homeland, frightened of going into that small boat. So we can also build our understanding about what this experience might have been like and how this community had felt about moving from their home country to the UK by also looking at some of the photographs that were taken at the time. And I want you to have a little look at this feelings wheel that we've got here. Which feelings do you think, or you can see on these children's faces? Maybe there is some sadness there. We can expand on that word sadness, maybe feeling lonely, maybe feeling hurt about being sent away from some family members. Maybe there is a fear, recognizing that they're feeling a little bit vulnerable and a bit worried about what they might be confronted with. Maybe there's that element of surprise. Are they being overwhelmed by lots of new things or confused why it's happening? Maybe even shocked. Disgust is quite a strong word, but you never know. There might be that feeling of being disappointed. Maybe it didn't quite work out as you had expected. Pause the video now to select 2 or 3 bits of vocabulary from our feelings wheel and use them to write a thought bubble for one of the children in the picture. Welcome back. We're going to do the same now with another image. Here we go. We can see the ship there in the background and a police officer walking this young girl off the ship. And we can assume to her parents who are out of shot. Have a little look at this feelings wheel again. Which feelings do you think this young girl may have been experiencing at this time? For me, I'm kind of feeling there's a little bit more sadness. Maybe there's a little bit of surprise, being a bit startled, maybe. Her first experience of being in the UK is the sight of a policeman who's now escorting her away from the ship. I wonder if this child is feeling confident, though. She doesn't seem to be very to be upset or trying to get away. Pick your 3 words and do exactly the same as we did before. Write a speech bubble or a thought bubble for this young girl using that vocabulary. What might she be thinking? If you'd like to, challenge yourself and write your own thought bubble for the policeman as well. Welcome back. So, we've experienced quite a lot today in terms of the feelings and the emotions that are kind of tied into this experience. What I'm going to ask you to do today is to write 3 tweets. Okay, not that this technology was available at their time. What if this happened today? And you're going to write 3 tweets to share your experience of boarding the ship to a new land. I've split these 3 tweets into 3 moments. Moment 1, stepping onto the ship to leave your country. Moment 2, the boat journey to your new home. And you can pull on some of the experiences of Fluella and that John Agar recreates in his poem Windrush Child, but also from your work on the arrival unit if you are completing that. And then this last moment about stepping off the boat into a new country, and those last few photographs will be really useful here, using those feeling wheels and the thought bubbles as well. You should be able to see on the screen 2 examples of tweets where my face once was. And you can see there that they are short snippets of thoughts and feelings that are being shared. And they're usually finished off with a hashtag, something that will kind of summarize that particular feeling or notion. I had a little go at one myself, and I took that moment 1, that stepping onto the ship to leave my country. Here it is. So here's my post. Look out, England, here I come. The ship has just left Jamaica, and I'm already missing the palm trees. Hashtag, can't believe it's goodbye. Hashtag, bon voyage. Hashtag, opportunity knocks. What will your hashtags be? What will your messages say? And if you'd like that extra challenge, see if you can write your post in less than 140 characters. That means 140 letters, spaces, and punctuation marks. Good luck. Here's a little sneak peek about the starter activity for tomorrow's lesson. Hope you enjoyed it today, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.